સદૈવ સારંગ પુરશ્ય રમ્યે સુમંદિરે અક્ષરધામ તુલ્ય. કે સદૈવ સારંગપુરની અંદર મહારાજ બિરાજમાન છે. કેવું છે? અક્ષરધામ તુલ્ય. આમ જોઈએ તો પાઘડી પડી જાય, આમ જોઈએ ને તો પાઘડી પડી જાય એવું કર્યું છે. તે ઘડીએ માના પાનાની વાતો કરીએ છીએ, પૈસા ના મળે, ખાવાનું ના મળે, કશું ના મળે, મંદિર કર્યું. એટલે શાસ્ત્રી મહારાજની અંદર ભગવાન બિરાજ્યા તો કેટલું સરસ કામ કે તે ઘડીએ કંઈ થઈ શકે નહીં. પણ એવા સમયમાં શાસ્ત્રી મહારાજે આવું મોટું મંદિર કર્યું. તો તે ઠેકાને હવે નૈમિષારણ્ય ક્ષેત્ર ક્યાં જાણવું એ કહે છે. જે ઠેકાને ભગવાનના એકાંતિક સાધુ રહેતા હોય તે ઠેકાને જાણો. ક્યાં જાણવું? કે ચાલો અમદાવાદ જઈએ, દિલ્હી જઈએ, મુંબઈ જઈએ ને બધા ત્યાં અમેરિકા, લંડન જઈએ, નૈમિષારણ્ય બતાવ્યું. નૈમિષારણ્ય કહ્યું જ્યાં એવા એકાંતિક, જો અહીંયા શાસ્ત્રી મહારાજે મંદિર કર્યું, મહારાજ બિરાજ્યા અને એવું સુંદર મંદિર કર્યું છે કે અહીંયા આવતા શાંતિ થઈ જાય. એવા સંત પણ અહીંયા રહ્યા અને આજે આટલા બધા સંતો તમારા અહીંયા છે. એટલે શ્રીજી મહારાજ અહીંયા બિરાજ્યા છે, એમના ભક્તિ બેઠા છે. શાસ્ત્રી મહારાજ સાક્ષાત બિરાજ્યા છે અક્ષર સ્મૃતિ મંદિરમાં. એટલે આપણો એકાંતિક ધર્મ ત્યાં છે. રાજયોગી મહારાજ પણ રહ્યા છે. તો એવા એકાંતિક સાધુ જ્યાં છે તે ઠેકાને આ નૈમિષારણ્ય સાધુ. બધી યાત્રા કરવાની જરૂર નથી, અનૈમિષારણ્ય જવાની જરૂર નથી. અહીં આવી જવું ને બધું આ સાધુના સમાગમ કરો. એવું સંતના સમાગમ રૂપી નૈમિષારણ્ય ક્ષેત્ર જ્યાં હોય, જ્યાં દેખાય ત્યાં કલ્યાણ. ક્યાં હીશું? કલ્યાણ ત્યાં છું. પછી બધા ફરીએ આખે મહાત્મા પુરુષો બધા બહુ. પણ આપણી ઇન્દ્રિયો જ્યાં પાછી વળે કે જ્યાંથી આપણી જગતમાંથી વૃત્તિ ખાઈ જાય ભગવાનો ચોંટી જાય, એ નૈમિષારણ્ય ક્ષેત્ર છે. એવા સત્પુરુષ શાસ્ત્રી મહારાજ, યોગી મહારાજ આપણને મળ્યા છે. એમાં આપણી આ ઇન્દ્રિય વૃત્તિ ચોંટી છે. આપણે એવો મહિમા સમજાયો છે તો આજે બધો કરીએ છીએ. માટે ત્યાં અતિ દ્રઢ મન કરીને રહેવું. જય સ્વામિનારાયણ.
પ્રમુખ સ્વામી મહારાજ સર્વોપરી ભગવાનના સર્વોપરી સંત હતા.
प्रमुख स्वामी सुखकारी ये संत परम हितकारी. गाथा महापुरुषनी संत परम हितकारी. गाथा महापुरुषनी संत परम हितकारी. महापुरुषनी આ છે કથા પ્રમુખ સુખકારી.
Saranpur, the final resting ground of His Holiness Pramukh Swami Maharaj, a sentimental spot chosen by himself, ensuring his Guru forever watches over him, whilst he forever retains his worship towards Ishtadev Bhagwan Swaminarayan. A simple remote village, closed off from the world, where in normal circumstances would be a village unheard of. But today, Sarangpur exists in the hearts and minds of millions of people. Why did Swami Shri choose Sarangpur to be his final resting place? What was so special about it? And why was it so close to Swami Shri's heart?
Sarangpur is a small and quiet town located 140 kilometers southwest of Ahmedabad. In the heart of Sarangpur lies this majestic Shikharbad Mandir, which today is considered to be one of the flagship mandirs of the Bochasanwasi Shri Akshar Purushottam Swaminarayan Sanstha. Originally envisioned by Bhagwan Swaminarayan and later built by Brahmaswarup Shastriji Maharaj in 1916, this three-tiered Shikharbad Mandir today is the home of the training center for BAPS Sadhus. 75 years ago, Shastriji Maharaj entrusted the young Narayanswarupdas with the enormous responsibility of this mandir by making him the Sarangpur Mandir Kothari. Then, as it is today, this mandir is a jewel in the crown of our Sanstha.
So after Diksha, Swami Shri had been involved in studies. He'd served in some mandirs like Gondal, the Atladra Mandir construction, and was also doing Vichran with Shastriji Maharaj. He would also take part in Parayans. So the year was 1947. Swami Shri was around 25 years old. And Shastriji Maharaj wanted to make Swami Shri the Kothari, the head sant of Sarangpur Mandir. Bapa's efficiency, his way of working with people had obviously touched Shastriji Maharaj. And most important, his pure intent. So he gave this proposal to Swami Shri that I want to make you the Kothari of Sarangpur. Just to think, the mandir is Sarangpur. Remember, there was only Bochasan, Sarangpur, Gondal, Atladra, 4 mandirs at that time. Sarangpur was Shastriji Maharaj's favorite mandir. And he wanted to give the responsibility of that mandir to this young Narayanswarupdas.
Now, prior to this decision, Swami was already helping Hari Krishna Das in the administrative seva of the mandir. Hari Krishna Das was the acting Kothari at that time. He also had experienced Swami Shri's kushalta, his skills in doing all this seva.
તૈયાર કર્યો તો સારું એટલે મને એમણે ચાવી આપેલી બધે હાજે સિલાઈ કરવું આ કરવું પૈસા આવે એ બધું એ કેટલા આપવાના હોય તો મને લખી શીખવાડે બધું પૈસા આપે એટલે ઉધારવા થતું રામ રામ એટલે મહિનો 1.5-2 મહિના એમ બધું ચાલ્યું અને એમ બધું કામે ચાલ્યું પછી એક વખત કંઈ સિલક ઓછી થઈ ગણવામાં સિલકમાં કંઈક કદાચ તો લાખો રૂપિયાની વાત હતી ને 2-5 રૂપિયાની વાત સિલકમાં કંઈ જાજી સિલકો હતી નહીં સાધારણ પૈસા અને સાધારણ વપરાય. એમાં સિલકમાં ઓછું થયું એટલે પછી મારા મનમાં થયું કે આ કામ આપણે કરવા જેવું નહીં. ગામમાં પૈસા ખૂટી જાય ત્યારે થઈ જાય અને કહેશે આ તો સાધુ પૈસા ખાઈ જાય અને આપણે માથે આવે એટલે મનમાંથી એ થઈ ગયું કે આપણે આમાં પ્રવૃત્તિ ભળવું નથી આ.
But despite that, Hari Krishna Swami had told Shastriji Maharaj, okay, please give him this Kothari pad. Not because he wants it, but because he is capable and very efficient.
When Shastriji Maharaj proposed for him to become the Kothari of Saranpur Mandir, Pramukh Sai Maharaj humbly told Shastriji Maharaj, Swami, this seva is not for me. It should be given to somebody who is more experienced and more older than me. I'm not suited for this seva, I'm still young and have little experience, especially in the aspect of accounts.
But no, Shastriji Maharaj had it fixed in his mind. He was well aware of the hidden talents in this young sadhu. And he gave Swami blessings. Maharaj will give you strength. Maharaj will give you inspiration. Just say yes. And in that way, Shastriji Maharaj, he embraced Swami Shri and gave him blessings.
એટલે પછી બધો વિધિ સર વાત કરી એટલે તે વાસુદેવ સ્વામી ભંડારમાં હતા બીજા સંતો બધા હતા એ બધાને બોલાયા હરિકંદા કોઠારી પછી આ બધું વિધિ કરે ને એમ બધું ચાંદલા બાલના કર્યા કોઠારમાં અહીંયા રૂમમાં બેસીને બધા કંઈક આજથી આને કોઠારી નીમવું જોઈએ તમારે બધા સાચવવું ને એની સલાહ એને બધી આજ્ઞા પ્રમાણે કામ કરવું અને મોટા સંતો કે તમારે એને સાચવવો અને આ બધું કામકાજ એમને સોંપીએ છીએ ને બહુ બધાને સારું થશે એમ સ્વામી આશીર્વાદ આપે એટલે એ પછી આ કોઠારમાં રહેવાનું છે 2003માં.
And then Shastriji Maharaj himself actually guided Swami Shri. Okay, this is how you look at the accounts. This is how you do the bookkeeping. This is how you look after the Hari Bhaktas. And so Shastriji Maharaj, he was so happy after this appointment of Swami Shri as Kothari. Until now, Swami Shri had been studying. He had been involved in Vichran. He had been doing Parayans. And going from mandir to mandir, he was involved in the construction. But now, since this appointment, he was more or less based in Sarangpur. Occasionally, he had to travel out, but his first priority was to look after the seva in Sarangpur.
Sadguru Muktanand Swami writes in one of his kirtans, Jya joe tya Ramji biju na bhase re. This means that a devotee of God, wherever he looks, he only sees the image of God. In the same way, this Sarangpur Mandir, Yagnapur Smruti Mandir, the Sant Ashram, in fact, every corner of this campus has its own story to tell of Pramukh Swami Maharaj. From Tuesday the 2nd of January 1940, when Shastriji Maharaj brought together with him to Saranpur for the very first time the young and newly initiated Shanti Bhagat, to Saturday the 13th of August 2016, when Pramukh Sai Maharaj in Sarangpur breathed his last, this campus has witnessed countless events of Pramukh Sai Maharaj's devotion to God and his willingness to serve his gurus. Every corner of this campus, every inch, has its own memory to share. In recent years, many of us will have visited Sarampur Mandir and casually walked past many spots, not realizing the history or the memorable incidents that have occurred here. Looking at the campus today, it's very difficult to imagine what it may have looked like back then. However, all these years later, some of these spots can still be seen today. Walking through the main entrance of the Sant Ashram and through this corridor takes you to the old Sabha Mandap. We are now familiar with holding weekly sabhas on a large scale in many of our mandirs, but back then, this small area is where they used to take place. Currently where the shrine for the Murti stand, in the front of the first shrine, Swami Shri and Pujya Sant Vallabh Swami, commonly known as Pujya Sant Swami, would sit and discuss spiritual matters until late at night. Though Sant Swami was senior to Swami Shri in age, their relationship was a special one, filled with mutual respect. Endearing memories remain of when they would often greet each other by prostrating to one another. Many of us have had the darshan of Pramukh Swami in Sarvasva, which was Swami Shri's room when he visited Sarangpur. Similarly, Shastriji Maharaj and Yogiji Maharaj also had their own rooms when they would stay in Sarangpur. To the right of the main shrine is Shastriji Maharaj's room. During the winter months of his time here as Kothari, Swami Shri would sleep near the two pillars in the Sabha Mandap just outside the room. Every morning, he would also perform his puja there. Opposite the two pillars is a double door that leads out of the Sabha Mandap. As you exit the Sabha Mandap, Swami Shri would sleep outside during the summer months. Now we walk by these places so casually, without realizing the immense humility that the young Kothari Narayanswarupdas had. By sleeping out here in the open, we can imagine his complete disregard for his own bodily comforts, despite being in charge of such a grand mandir. Right next to Shastriji Maharaj's room is Yogiji Maharaj's room. Just outside the west-facing doors of this room is a small passage, where on many occasions Swami Shri would rest too. A humorous prasang occurred one night while Swami Shri slept in this very spot.
One time, Pramukh Sai Maharaj was outside of Yogiji Maharaj's room in the veranda, and he remembered a prasang. And so Pramukh Sai Maharaj started sharing that prasang. He talked about how, they had a very good relationship with the other Swaminarayan Mandir in town. And whenever we needed something, it was so easy to go over there and ask for help, and vice versa. When they needed some help, they would come and ask us. And so one day it happened that Acharya Anand Prasad Ji Maharaj was in Sarangpur, and the Swami that was in charge in the other Swaminarayan Mandir, Keshav Bhagat, he needed some Sidhu Saman. He needed some grains and some vegetables and stuff to make food for all the individuals that had accompanied Acharya Anand Prasad Maharaj. And so he looked and he couldn't find enough, so he thought that let's go to meet Narayan Swami, the Pramukh Sai Maharaj, and see, if he could help us. But it was nighttime and Pramukh Sai Maharaj already went to sleep.
So Keshavda, with a flashlight in hand, came looking for Swami Shri in the middle of the night to request what he needed. He found Narayanswarupdas Swami by the chali adjacent to Yogiji Maharaj's room. To wake up Swami Shri, instead of just calling out his name, for some reason, he grabbed Swami Shri's head and started shaking him and said, "Narayan Swami, Narayan Swami." Swami Shri was startled and woke up. Keshavda simply announced himself to Swami Shri. "Keshavda, it's me, Keshavda." Swami Shri then asked, "Yes, I know it's you, but why did you need to hold my hands and wake me up?" Keshavda started laughing. "Well, once I had a really bad experience," he said. "I had once woken someone up from deep sleep because I needed something from them as well. That person thought I was a thief, and so without even looking at who I was, he just slapped me right across the face. Since then, this is how I wake everyone up in the middle of the night. I always hold their hands and wake them up." Swami heard this and just started laughing. laughing with him, and then got up to help him find all of the items that he needed.
Currently behind the mandir, where there is a marble shrine, there is a mud hut where Shastriji Maharaj would stay. Shastriji Maharaj would often sit just outside the hut and overlook the construction work of the mandir. His presence would give great encouragement to all the saints and devotees involved in this seva. Also, many years later, this was the spot where Shastriji Maharaj expressed his wish to have a photo taken with the young Narayanswarupdas. Just in front, there is a small well and bucket that was used to extract water to bathe. While some construction work was being done in 2018, the well was rediscovered and has now been preserved as a memory of this historic location.
There is another memory that Swami Shri shares with us regarding his time as the Kothari in Saranpur. And even this incident takes place in another place that they would often sleep at night. Him and a few other santos, they were sleeping inside the Rangmandap. The Rangmandap is the ground floor of the mandir. Even there, nowadays, we go to do darshan of Shastriji Maharaj's prasadi items and to see the small exhibition there. The Rangmandap is enclosed by walls on all four sides, and when the santos slept there, they would often close all the three doors coming into the Rangmandap as well, usually because they slept there in the winter, and it helped keep all the cold winter winds out.
One evening, Pramukh Swami Maharaj and 3 other individuals, they were sleeping outside the Rang Mandap, and in the middle of the night they heard a noise. Now Pramukh Swami Maharaj is usually very witty, very sharp, and right away he could grasp the situation. And so immediately Pramukh Swami Maharaj thought that someone's entered the Rang Mandap and it's probably a thief that's come to steal something. And so immediately Pramukh Swami Maharaj woke up Prabhu Swami and the 2 other individuals. And then he instructed them to go to the other 2 doors. So there was one individual at all 3 doors of the Rang Mandap.
They opened one of the doors slowly, expecting the thief. But to their dismay, out came not a thief, but just a dog. It was just a dog, and so they started laughing and went back to sleep. This is one of those Divya Leelas of Swami. He is, of course, a Gnani, the Lord of all, but even he acted like he knew nothing, just to give a memorable smriti to those who were with him.
Currently where the audiovisual cabin stands is where Pramukh Swami Maharaj's office used to be. During Diwali celebrations, he would perform the Chopra Pujan in his office. Swami Shri would describe how they would keep the accounts of the mandir up to date. Also in front of the Santashram today, there is a well known as the Haverio well. Although we may walk past it now without even noticing its presence, back then it was actively used and the villagers would pull drinking water from it for their livestock. Swami Shri even used the water from this well for bathing and cooking. These divine grounds were home to Swami Shri. He often spoke very fondly of his time here, and we all witnessed the bond he had with this mandir during his later years. The next time we come for darshan, or we are walking from the main mandir to the Uttara, or past the front of the Santashram, or through the corridors inside, we can maybe take a minute and try and picture how Swami Shri, at the tender age of 25, would have lived here in the very basic surroundings there were at the time.
Being appointed as the head sadhu of Sarangpur was a mark of Shastriji Maharaj's trust in Narayana. It was now time for young Narayana to recall everything he had learnt from his guru in order to play this key role. Taking in mind the size of the grounds at Sarangpur, Narayana knew early on that if he was to make an impact, he would first need to work with and for the people of the village. He needed to connect with them, relate with them, be like them.
The book 360-Degree Leader by John Maxwell. In it says a true good leader are connected with the people they lead. Connect with the people and give them the opportunity to connect with you. This was clearly seen in Pramukh Singh Maharaj. He connected with every person in the mandir, whether sadhu, a grahastha, or the mason workers, or every person that was in the mandir.
As the head of Sarangpur Mandir, Swami Shri was new on the block. Young, fresh and shy, completely inexperienced. Yet he emerged as a leader in every way. He was a natural leader beyond the books of management. Never imposing, never demanding. He led with gentle humility and availability.
Pramukh Singh Maharaj, reflecting on the seva he did as a Kothari in Saranpur many years back, he was asked a question, Swami, when you were the Kothari, then all the workers, the santas would come to you and ask for your advice. Swami Shri said, no. Before they come to me, I would go forth and I would meet them.
મેં પહેલેથી રાખેલું કોઠારી થયો ત્યારથી જ એવો વિચાર કે આપણાથી બધા વડીલ છે એટલે વડીલને સલાહ સૂચન કરીને કરે એટલે એકલો કરી નાખે ને વાસુદેવ સ્વામી ભંડારમાં હતા તો ભંડારમાં જઈને આપણે પૂછીએ ભાઈ કયા હોય તો કહેજો હું તો નવો છું મને કંઈ ખબર પડતી નથી પછી તમારે જે હોય તો મને કહો તો હું એ પ્રમાણે કરું એટલે વાસુદેવ સ્વામીને પણ કે ના તારે કામ નથી અમારે છે તો કહીશું પણ એ રીતે કહીએ એ ખેતીવાડીમાં પેલા ભાઈ કરતા સોમા ભગત એકડે એ નહોતા બહુ કારણ કે એકડે ત્યાં સીજી પરા ઉપર જતા રહ્યા હે પ્રભુ હતા કોઠારીમાં ખેતીવાડીમાં એટલે પ્રભુને આપણે કહીએ કે ભાઈ આ બાબત છે એટલે એ રીતે બધાને મળતા કરતા બધું એ હતું ત્યાં પછી વીરસંગ ભગતને ત્યાં ગયા હતો પછી ભાઈ આ નવા અમે આવ્યા છે રામજી ભગત હતો કે કોઈ નવા છે કે કાંઈ વાંધો નહીં તમારે ચિંતા નહીં અમે બધું ધ્યાન રાખીશું એટલે એ રીતે બધું આપણે બધાને આગળ રાખીને કરતા હતા એટલે એમને કે આપણું ધાર્યું કરવું આપણે નવા ને બધી જાણતા ન હોય ને કંઈનું કંઈ થઈ જાય એટલે પહેલાં હવે પૂછીએ કે આ ખેતીમાં શું કરવું તો એને પ્રભુને પૂછીએ કે તારે શું વાવવું શું ભાઈ તું વાવ અને ભંડારમાં પણ વાસુદેવ સ્વામીને રુચિ પ્રમાણે જે કહે પ્રમાણે બધું કરતા.
Perhaps it was this tinge of truth and immense love that bound him together with everyone as a leader. Swami Shri was a leader who was connected to everyone because he cared for everyone.
His leadership was one of humility. The way he used to handle people or his colleagues or take on any task, whether it was big or small. Once in Sarangpur, a sadhu, his guest was due to arrive from Ahmedabad, guest meaning some other Hari Bhakta. So regarding this sadhu had told Swami Shri, ke mehman aave che and a cart needs to be sent to pick him up. So please arrange for a cart, please place grass bundles in the cart, keep the driver ready, ensure the sheets are spread for the seating. And normally all you would have to say is, just keep the cart ready and everything would be done. But this sadhu was being very, very specific. Not an issue. Swami Shri folded his hands. He assured the sadhu that the arrangements would be made accordingly. He told him, don't worry. Yet, 2-3 hours later, the sadhu comes back. He tells Swami Shri exactly the same thing. Okay, get this ready, get this ready, get this ready. Again, Swami Shri reassured him. The following morning, when the guest was due to arrive, again the sadhu comes to Swami Shri. He reminds him yet again. Swami Shri calmly replied, yes, I am aware. Despite this, already 3 times, this sadhu, he came another couple of times to Swami Shri. Okay, is the cart ready? Have you checked it yourself? Have you checked the seating? And until the cart actually left the mandir, he kept reminding Swami Shri. So just thinking about this prasang, despite his position as Kothari, Swami Shri would be involved in such trivial matters. Despite that, Swami Shri would give justice to all of them and he would take it positively in his stride. So once someone did mention, when they heard this prasang, they asked Swami Shri that even if you've done everything and still someone keeps asking us or comes back and says, have you done this, or comes back to check, that makes us, even more angry or frustrated. But Swami Shri's golden rule, Swami Shri said that look, one should not become annoyed after understanding one's nature, that they are not going to stop. We should adjust. Apne tevai jau and become habituated. He was a master of having the ability to understand others, to work with others without allowing himself to become tense or agitated or stressed out in any way.
In the book Effective Decision Making, the author John Adder writes that the first principle in any common sense of morality is that we should treat people as people and all that it means. Meaning that we should connect with the people and treat them as the way they are. When you look at the life of Pramukh Maharaj, when it was the Kothari Saranpur Mandir, many years back, we can see that Pramukh Maharaj treated each person in this manner.
He truly cared about every single individual that he met. He had a sense of compassion. He could empathize with everyone. And we could, see that at the time, Pramukh Maharaj was in a leadership position. And, it's natural for us as a leader to be able to want to connect. We develop skills so we can connect to individuals and so forth. But for Pramukh Maharaj, it was something that came very natural and it was very genuine.
Even as the head of Sarangpur Mandir, he served with everyone, shoulder to shoulder with the smallest of workers, be he a shepherd or a cowherd, be he a simple village potter. Swami Shri remembered each and everyone by the sevas they did.
Some 40 years later, when Pramukh Maharaj was in Saranpur, and as he was going from the mandir to Smruti Mandir, and on the road, he saw this old person and immediately called him. He goes, "Oh, Vitthal, come here." And so Vitthal Bhai, he came to meet Swami, and Swami started asking him, "How are you doing? How's everything?" He goes, "Do you come every day to the mandir for darshan?" He asked him many different questions, asked about his health and so forth.
Now all the santas who are with Pramukh Maharaj were surprised. Who is he talking to? Then Vitthal came forward and Swami Shri explained to all the santas who Vitthal was. Swami Shri said, "This is Vitthal from Saranpur village. He used to make clay pots. Him and his two brothers used to help me 40 years ago to distribute Ankur Prasad to the houses in the Saranpur village. He connected to each and every person, and 40 years afterwards, he could remember the person's name and the seva he did with him."
On another occasion, he beckoned a beggarly-looking man, a poor man, into his own room, closed the doors and explained to the sevaks that this is Mohan. His father was Moti, and they were the ones who have always been with us since the beginning of the Sarangpur Mandir. When the main gate was being made, when the powerhouse was being made, they were there. Pramukh Swami never forgot a face or the seva somebody did. May it be Ratna, the cowherd. He was the next door neighbor in one of our farms. Whether it's a darbar or whether it's somebody who is completely unknown, Pramukh Swami remembered the faces of the people because he remembered the seva they did. Primarily because he served with people with all his heart. Care and compassion for Swami Shri were not mere nouns, they were active verbs, feelings seen in action, amply visible by the way he wrote letters.
Around this time, it must have been early 1950, a Hari Bhakta from Mojirad, his name was Muljibai Mistry, and he was going to visit Mumbai to purchase a 10 horsepower oil engine required for his grain grinding machine. Just a simple purchase, but when Swami Shri found out, Swami Shri, he went to great lengths. He knew that this devotee's financial condition was not great, and in those days visiting a city like Mumbai to purchase items and to barter was not straightforward.
Instantly Swami Shri picked up a pen and wrote a letter to Shastriji Maharaj and his friend Hakka Bapu who are currently in Mumbai. He beautifully writes to them saying that Swami Shri Muljibai Mistri is coming to Mumbai for purchasing a 10 horsepower engine for his flour mill. In order that it is not cheated or duped or fooled by the people of Mumbai, please make sure that he gets proper guidance to buy a good engine at a good price.
So that was Swami Shri's letter to Shastriji Maharaj. At the same time, Swami Shri also wrote to Hakkabai, who was in Shastriji Maharaj's Seva. Now, Swami Shri's letter to Hakkabai. Murjibai has come there. He needs to purchase an engine. For that, please speak to Harshad Bhai or someone else in Mumbai to find someone who can provide an engine at a reasonable price. Provide any other necessary facilities. In case Murjibai requires any extra money, please speak to Pujya Swamiji, meaning Shastriji Maharaj, to arrange the funds as appropriate.
He does not leave the letter to that. He also says, because he is there for the first time in Mumbai, please also make arrangements for his visit to the Mumbai city.
And then Swami ends that letter by writing, you must be enjoying the fresh air of Malabar Hill. 5 lines in this short letter. But how many layers of Swami Shri's personality come out? Number 1, Swami Shri's love for the devotee can be seen by writing this letter that he gets the right item from the right person. Secondly, that if required, he gets financial help. But again, only after seeking permission from Shastriji Maharaj. Thirdly, because he was going to Mumbai for the first time. So naturally, one would wish to visit the different sites in the city. So Swami Shri told Hakkabai to make the arrangements to show him around Mumbai. To show Murjibai what Mumbai is. This is how Swami Shri managed to understand and manage the human mind. Fourthly, Swami Shri's words in the letter. In the original it says, Apsho ji, Kesho ji, Batausho ji. Such respect he's writing to his friend Hakkabai. They were friends, fast friends. But he's saying, ji, Apsho ji. And finally, the last line, the lightness in the joke. You must be enjoying the air of Malabar Hill, showing his friendship or revealing his closeness to Hakkabai. So from this one letter we can understand how Swami Shri cared for the Vevar, the worldly affairs of the devotees. It reminds us of the bhajan, Anatha Tana Tame Nathaji, Cho Dina Bandhu Dayar. For an orphan, Anath, you are a parent, Nathaji. For the poor, you are a compassionate support.
Swami Shri was so gentle and loving that you and I would write a one-line recommendation saying, he's a good satsangi and please help him appropriately. It is in the details that we feel Swami Shri's love and care and concern. No wonder everyone loved Swami Shri beyond imagination.
Pramukh Swami Maharaj was once quoted saying, just because you become the Kothari doesn't mean you just sit on the throne. Instead, you should join everyone in seva. And this trait was aptly demonstrated as Narayanswarupdas became a sevak of Sarangpur.
The farms that we owned in Saranpur, they needed security at night. And so in the mandir, Prabhu Swami, who was in charge of the Gigor, Kothari and everything, and there was an individual by the name of Mohan Sakaryo. And so these two individuals, they would insist on Pramukh Swami Maharaj that, you'd have to come with us to do the security of the farms at night.
પ્રભુ કે તમે કોઠારી એટલે તમારે પણ રાત્રે આવવું જોઈએ. પ્રભુ કે છે કોઠારી તમે થયા છો તમારે પણ રાત્રે આવવું જોઈએ. એટલે એમ કરીને સાથે લઈએ. એટલે પ્રભુ અમારે પોચાસન ના થાય અને બહુ જોરદાર હાથમાં રાખે. અને નાનો એક તમંચો રામજી રાખતો અને પેલા આપણે હાથી હોય એની પાસે પણ દારીઓ ડાંગ હોય એટલે રાત્રે જઈએ એટલે કાંઈ ઢોર હોય કોઈ માણસ હોય પેલા કરતો એક વખત શંકરવાડી તરફ જઈએ અને એક વખત આપણે આંબલીવાળા તરફ જઈએ બીજે દાડે એમ 2-3-4 દાડામાં અઠવાડિયામાં 2-3-4 વખત મને લઈ જાય બાકી તો લોકો દરરોજ જતા હતા.
And they would take Pramukh Swami Maharaj at midnight, and they would be doing these security rounds all the way up till 4 o'clock in the morning. Now, this lasted for about 10 days.
2-3 કલાક તો ફરવામાં જાય ને આ બાજુ ફરીને ચાલીને જ જવાનું એટલે કે વાહન તો હતું જ નહીં ચાલીને જ જવાનું પછી ત્યાં પાછું અડધો કલાક બેસીએ બીજે આજુબાજુ જઈને બેસીએ કંઈ હનખાટ હોય બીજું હોય તો પછી બંદૂકના એ લોકો ભડાકા કરે અને પછી પાછા આવતા રહીએ. ના એટલે એ જે રાત્રે 4 વાગે એમ 2 કલાક સુઈ જાય એટલું સુઈએ.
But when the Kothari of the Hanumanji player, Virsanko, when he found out about this, he called Prabhu Swami and told him. He also called Mohan Sankari and told him that they shouldn't be taking Narayanswarupdas out like this in the middle of the night. How could he stay all night and then also carry on his duties during the day? He instead offered that if they needed someone to do security rounds on the farm at night, then he would send his parshas to do the nightly rounds. Even Virsanko, the Kothari of Hanumanji Mandir, had immense respect for Swami. In short, Swami's management style touched everyone who he worked with.
Swami Shri would also be involved in helping others, whether it's someone living in the village, whether it's devotees, and not just in their spiritual matters, but also in their worldly matters. Just one example, we've all heard of Hakka Bapu. So Hakka Bai at that time, as he was known, often used to travel with Sastriji Maharaj.
And he wanted to construct a well outside his house. Sastriji Maharaj had given him a murat, an auspicious time when to start the work. But when the murat came, Hakka Bapu was on Vichram with Sastriji Maharaj.
So Swami Shri himself, he took a devotee called Devshi Bai. He went to Hakka Bai's place. He went to measure the well, and he started the work of planning the well.
On another occasion, a fence had to be constructed around the house of Hakka Bapu. Again, Hakka Bapu was on Vichram with Sastriji Maharaj. So Pramukh Singh Maharaj, he himself started and completed the work of the fence.
And we all know in Sarangpur, every year, that the festival of Jaljini Ekadashi is celebrated in the month of Bhadarwa. It's a Nirjala Upvas, a waterless fast. So traditionally on that day, Thakurji is taken out in a procession around the whole village. And whatever houses would come en route, Thakurji would sanctify each and every home. Swami Shri and the sadhus, they would do Padramri at that home. And Padramri bit at that time, it was like 1 rupee or even half a rupee, 8 anna. Now, despite being the Kothari, despite having this waterless fast of Ekadashi, in the scorching heat, and it would usually be afternoon when these Padramris would happen, Swami Shri would conduct 70, sometimes even 80 Padramris on that day.
Being a Kothari, which is a very prominent position, Pramukh Singh Maharaj remained very humble, doing all the seva of the mandir, sevas of the Hari Bhakta, and also doing Padramris in the houses in the village of Saranpur.
As head sadhu, Narayanswarupdas invariably faced difficult situations. The buck stops with the leader, and Narayanswarupdas would not only rise to the occasion, but would go on to set an example for generations to come in how to overcome difficult and testing times.
Those days in Sarangpur were tough, really tough, like an unending tale of struggles. Sarangpur being a remote village, devotees were sparse, pilgrims were few, and donations were drying up. Sometimes you would hardly get 30 rupees per month. When meeting the daily needs of the mandir was a struggle, then what of completing a project like the main gate of Sarangpur? Knowing it to be the dream of Shastriji Maharaj, Swami Shri was working day and night.
There was in Botad a Muslim biradar by the name of Baradun Shet, and Pramukh Swami Maharaj established a line of credit with him, and he would provide all the steel. then there was an individual by the name of Amrutlal Vasani, and Swami also established a line of credit with him, and he supplied all the wood and cement. And so, with this line of credit, Pramukh Swami Maharaj would get all the materials that he needed, and they started the construction of the gate.
But as debts started mounting, the struggle to pay to the traders became more and more. The outstandings reached up to almost 30,000 rupees.
અને આપણને મૂંઝવણ થાય કે આપણે આવીશું કહીશું એટલે 2-3-4 વખત વાયદા ખોટા પડી આપણા આયા નહીં. સ્વામી મોકલે કે અમે આશાવીને મોકલીએ છીએ અને ત્યાં આવશે ને બધું તારી મૂંઝવણ ટાળશે ને બધું એવું વાત લખે. હવે અહીંયા વાત લખે તો અગાવીને લખે તો આ તો સ્વામી કે ગઢડા જ મોકલો, એટલે આપણા તરફ કંઈ વલણ થયેલું નહીં. પછી મનમાં મૂંઝવણ થઈ ગઈ કે હવે આ ભાઈ પૈસા આપણે કોઈને આપીએ નહીં, આપણા ઉપર એને સારું નહીં. એટલે પછી વિચાર થયો, મૂંઝવણો પછી ગોંડલ જતો રહ્યો. અને ગોંડલ ગયા પછી થયું કે હવે ક્યારે પેલો અર્જુનદા મને પૂછે ક્યારે સારંગપુર? એમાં હમણાં જવું નથી, કારણ પૈસા નથી અને પૈસાવાળા ઉઘરાણી ખરે એ પોસાય નહીં. મેં નથી જવું મારે. તો કે શું કરું? મેં આપણે દ્વારકા ગયા નથી, દ્વારકા ગયા એટલે એમ નહીં જવું હતું, મારે જવું હતું, પેલા મૂકીને જવું હતું. બધાએ ભેગા થઈને વિચાર કર્યો, રાત્રે વિચાર કર્યો, પછી બીજે દાડે ત્યાંથી નીકળ્યા.
Almost for 20 days, he was out. That's when Shastriji Maharaj found out, and he wrote a letter to Swami Shri, comforting him that it's God's will, things will return to normalcy. He comforted and assured him, and sooner than ever, the huge mandir gate was completed.
And Shastriji Maharaj comes to Saranpur, and he was so impressed by seeing the gate that at that time Shastriji Maharaj says, any individual that comes to see this gate, he'll be granted salvation. And Maharaj and Swami personally will come to take them to Akshardham.
Such was the intense faith of Swami Shri in the words and vision of Shastriji Maharaj, that even amidst so many struggles, he could manage to complete the impossible.
Whilst Pramukh Swami Maharaj was the Kothari of Sarangpur Mandir, he wrote a letter to Shastriji Maharaj. This letter clearly draws a vivid picture of the difficulties faced by Shastriji Maharaj, the Santos and the Haribhaktos in propagating the Upasana of Akshapushatam.
Swami Shri wrote to Shastriji Maharaj, I am humbly requesting that by Amas, we need about 2,000 rupees. So please try to arrange it. We need these funds to pay the workers. Currently, we have borrowed money to keep the work going. So we need to pay that off immediately. We also have to give about 500 rupees to the workers who are getting the well work done.
At the same time, I will need money to pay for the raw materials like flour, ghee, etc. that is needed in the mandir. Then Pramukh Swami writes, you are Dayaru, all merciful, and as your children, you are taking care of us.
You are our life, and we are dependent on you. And whatever happiness there is because of you. Otherwise, this situation would disturb one's mind, but because of your caring attention to us, we are at peace.
Pramukh Swami Maharaj's nature was such that even the 100-fold problems came, he would never utter a single word. But in this letter he writes, the mind is full of worries. This is a reflection of the financial and physical problems and hardships that Pramukh Swami Maharaj had to face in the time when he was the Kothari of Sarangpur Mandir. In this day and age, when we have everything at our disposal, it will be very difficult for us to comprehend the difficulties that Swami Shri was facing. The letter is a testimony of what Pramukh Swami Maharaj had endured for our happiness.
So in addition to financial pressures, there were many other challenges in store. One such test came Swami Shri's way in February 1949. Shastriji Maharaj, he arrived in Atladra for the Vasant Panchami festival.
elaborate preparations had been made for celebrating the 85th birth anniversary of Shastriji Maharaj. Special arrangements for a Suvarna Tula were also done. Thousands had been invited, and people everywhere, all around, were excited to be a part of this festival.
The Hari Bhaktas had given their all, and their sacrifice was such that even the likes of Bali and Rantidev would be impressed. Shastriji Maharaj was to be weighed in a Suvarna Tula. It is a way of giving respect, felicitating those Maharajas or kings by weighing them against gold. There may be a Chandi Tula when people are weighed against silver, Suvarna Tula when they are weighed against gold. So the plan was for the Hari Bhaktas to seat Shastriji Maharaj in this Suvarna Tula, because Shastriji Maharaj had given his all, his whole life, 85 years, for the sake of Akshar Purushottam, for the sake of the devotees. And for that he had undergone untold hardships. So the devotees felt that this is our way to show our respect, to pay our debts to the Satpurush who has given his everything for us. So while preparation for this Tula was in process, at that time another organization had published some magazine. And in that magazine it had been written, Suvarna Tula sadhune na shobhe. A Suvarna Tula does not befit a sadhu. Chaturbhuj Swami, another young sadhu, around the same age as Swami Shri, he informed Shastriji Maharaj about this article. Now Shastriji Maharaj, his sadhuta was like Anishud, that he would not allow, not even a little stain, to blemish that saintliness. And he had lived his entire life with the utmost purity. So Shastriji Maharaj, in his mind, he decided that he would not sit in the Suvarna Tula. At that time, he did not tell anyone about it.
The night before, Shastriji Maharaj was in Atladra. Young Swami Shri went to meet him for some other work. After meeting Shastriji Maharaj, he went about doing his own work. Shastri Maharaj suddenly called senior devotees and very gently told them that if there is going to be a Suvarna Tula tomorrow, I will not sit in the Tula because I am a sadhu and it would be inappropriate to weigh a sadhu against gold. The devotees kept begging Shastriji Maharaj, the Swami, everybody has been invited. Mandaps have been laid out. Amazing preparations have been done. And at this stage, to suddenly cancel such an event would be a great embarrassment. So please do not cancel it. We must go ahead. Shastri Maharaj still insisted that I just won't sit in the Tula. Disheartened and heartbroken, the devotees came out. They started investigating that suddenly what has happened that has made Shastriji Maharaj change his mind. Somebody told them that it was young Naranda who had met him before. Instantly, in a fit of anger, they called Naranda. And they not only rebuked him, but they furiously scolded him.
And they started, without even asking him, reprimanding him in a threatening tone. Ke, who do you think you are? What do you understand? Do you want to make us all fools? What about our reputation? Do you know how many people have given seva? Thousands will be heartbroken. Thousands will be upset. And it's on your head. We are leaving. You can celebrate the festival however you want. In such an indignant tone, everyone hurled insults at Swami Shri. Remember Swami Shri? He was 27 years old. In reality, he was not at fault. Yet he calmly listened to them. He folded his hands. He did not utter even one word in defense.
On finding out, Shastriji Maharaj called young Naranda to his room. He comforted him and explained to him that all will be well. He not only blessed him, but specially embraced him. The next day, the devotees, Ashabai, Mathurbai, Hirabai, and others, they all came to Shastriji Maharaj and hoping that Shastriji Maharaj would change his mind. Shastri Maharaj explained that I would not sit in the tula if it's going to be weighed against gold, but if you weigh against sugar crystals, I will. A way was found. Shastri Maharaj was weighed against sugar crystals, which were later weighed against gold. And the whole festival ended in a great delight with satisfaction for everybody.
And amidst this Suvarna Tula, Swami Shri's sadhuta, like Suvarna, Suvarna Sami sadhuta, golden saintliness, also shone through and became evident to all. And many years later, Swami Shri was asked about this incident. And he was asked, okay, look, you were not at fault. All these Hari Bhaktas, they had a go at you. Yet you did not say one word in defense. Why? Swami Shri responded, okay, look, do you know those devotees? All of those devotees were senior. All of those devotees, they had sacrificed their heads for Shastriji Maharaj, for the Sanstha. So they all had the right, the adhikar, to reprimand me, to tell me off.
What a leader. What a quality. Swami Shri, right from his young days, he tolerated everyone. He actually revered those who rebuked them. Such leadership was a hallmark of his entire life.
Through many different prasangs, we've understood that there are many challenging times, many difficult times, not only in the pravrutti of the mandir, but also in dealing with the santos and haribhaktas. Yet, Pramukh Swami Maharaj's mind and aim was focused. That was to please Shastriji Maharaj only.
After celebrating Shastriji Maharaj's Amrit Mahotsav, Suvarna Tula, Shastriji Maharaj approached Pramukh Swami Maharaj and said that, you've been handling the responsibilities of Sarangpur Mandir really well, but it's my wish that you study now. And my Rajipur or my blessings are in that you study. Now, for any other individual, this would create a lot of confusion because it was Shastriji Maharaj that gave the agna to, take the responsibilities of being a Kothari in Sarangpur. But now it was Shastriji Maharaj asking him to give everything up and study, when initially he wanted to study. But for Pramukh Swami Maharaj, there was no confusion.
So when Shastriji Maharaj said, restart studies, instantly Pramukh Swami Maharaj said, Swami, my ultimate goal is to please you. Therefore, without a doubt, I will start studies again. Hearing this, Shastriji Maharaj became very happy on Pramukh Swami Maharaj. As the vision continued, Shastriji Maharaj, Pramukh Swami Maharaj came to Saranpur.
Shastriji Maharaj called a meeting. And in this meeting, he told all the people from the village and all the santos and so forth that now Nanda, the Pramukh Swami Maharaj is going to go to Ahmedabad to study. And when everyone learned of the news, everyone became tear-eyed because they were going to miss Pramukh Swami Maharaj. His nature was such that, everyone liked to be around him.
Pujan was offered to Pramukh Swami Maharaj. Haribhaktas offered dhotyas. It was a very emotional occasion as none of the santos or haribhaktas wished Pramukh Swami Maharaj to leave Saranpur and go to Ahmedabad. But because this was the wish of Shastriji Maharaj, nobody could change this.
And so we see that, Pramukh Swami Maharaj was really clear in his goal to please Shastriji Maharaj. And in a moment's notice, whatever the agna was, he was willing to, take hold of that agna and earn the Rajipa of Shastriji Maharaj.
They say leaders are not born, they are made. Kothari Narayanswarupdas, often lovingly called Kona, lifted not just the people, but the entire village of Sarangpur. Serving this sacred land with his own hands, building bridges of faith across various community groups, maintaining the welfare of the people through his unique outreach approach, and forming lasting relationships with everyone who came into his contact, were just a few indicators of Narayanswarupdas' leadership potential. Shastriji Maharaj had taught him well, but Narayana was truly excelling and exceeding his Guru's expectations. A leader wasn't being made, a leader was being revealed.
सदैव सारंगपुरस्य रम्ये सुमन्दिरे अक्षरधाम तुल्ये
सहाक्षरं मुक्तयुतं वसन्तं श्री स्वामिनारायण मानमामि सारंगपुरम अक्षरधाम सारंगपुरम अक्षरधाम
हे सारंगपुर मां बैठा छिए सारंगपुर मां बैठा छिए अक्षरधाम मां बैठा छिए अक्षरधाम मां बैठा छिए
सारंगपुर मां बैठा छिए सारंगपुर मां बैठा छिए अक्षरधाम मां बैठा छिए अक्षरधाम मां बैठा छिए
सारंगपुर मां बैठा छिए सारंगपुर मां
तेज ना छे अंबार तेजोमय छे सहुआकार अवनी ऊपर उतरी आव्यू स्वयं अक्षरधाम
अहो आपणा भाग्य महान देह छता मळिया भगवान प्रमुख रूपे दर्शन दे छे पुरुषोत्तम साक्षात अहो भाग्यम 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 ओ सारंगपुर मां बैठा छिए सारंगपुर मां बैठा छिए
अक्षरधाम मां बैठा छिए अक्षरधाम मां बैठा छिए
सारंगपुर मां बैठा छिए सारंगपुर मां
જેને જાણીને જાણવું કાંઈ રહ્યું નહીં જેને જાણીને જાણવું કાંઈ રહ્યું નહીં
એ જે સ્વરૂપ આજે દર્શન દે છે
પ્રમુખ સ્વામી આજે દર્શન દે છે
હે જેને પામીને પામવું કાંઈ રહ્યું નહીં જેને પામીને પામવું કાંઈ રહ્યું નહીં
એ જે સ્વરૂપ આજે દર્શન દે છે
પ્રમુખ સ્વામી આજે દર્શન દે છે આનંદો આનંદો નાચો ઝૂમો સૌ આનંદો હે આનંદો આનંદો નાચો ઝૂમો સૌ આનંદો
अक्षर वदे नेति जन अगम निगा ये गोचनार ने गोचा जरे ने आपण सौने थया सुगम अक्षर संगे अक्षर थैने अक्षर रंगे रंगिए जगत आवे प्रमुख स्वामी नी जन्म शताब्दी नवखंड जामी रस रंगत जिरे नवखंड जामी रस रंगत जिरे नवखंड जामी रस रंगत
सारंगपुर मंदिर की जय 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 मंदिर शताब्दी की जय 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 सारंगपुर मंदिर की जय 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 मंदिर शताब्दी की जय 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 सारंगपुर मंदिर की जय 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 मंदिर शताब्दी की जय 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 सारंगपुर मंदिर की जय 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 मंदिर शताब्दी की जय 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 प्रमुख स्वामी महाराज शताब्दी महोत्सवनी जय जय जय.
In the next episode, we witness 3 landmark events that would by far form the most striking turning points in Narayanswarupdas' life, featuring moments of celebration, deep sadness, and unending hope. Join us next time for an unmissable season finale. Pramukh.
મને તો એમ જ થયા કરે છે કે આપણા કેવા ભાગ્યનો પાર આવે એમ નથી કે પ્રમુખ સ્વામી જેવા ગુરુનો યોગ થયો. તેઓએ આપણને સૌને નિહાલ કર્યા છે. એ અનુભવ આ જીવન ચરિત્ર વાંચતા વિશેષ દૃઢ થશે. આ વાંચતા ખૂબ જ આનંદ થશે. સ્વામી બાપા નજર આગળ તરવરવા લાગશે.
कैसा जादू आप मिले ओ स्वामी कैसा जादू आप मिले स्वामी हम पे किया हर खुशी से हमारा जीवन भर दिया स्वामी भर दिया दिल में तेरे लिए कुर्बानी रहे प्रमुख स्वामी तुम्हारी कहानी रहे जब तक धरती पे सूरज की रोशनी रहे ये सितारे और चांद की वो चांदनी रहे प्रमुख स्वामी तुम्हारी कहानी रहे प्रमुख स्वामी तुम्हारी